The chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light orbiting a dying star. Inside, representatives from 847 different species sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had bodies made of flesh, others of crystalline energy. They were the Galactic Council, the oldest government in the known universe, and they were about to make a terrible mistake. Ambassador Hyeri stood at the human podium, her dark suit pressed perfectly, her expression calm. She had been Earth's voice to the Council for 23 years. 23 long years of presenting proposals, of asking for help, of trying to prove that humanity deserved respect. Today would be her last speech to this chamber. "The Outer Rim colonies are suffering," she said, her voice carrying through the translation systems. "Pirate raids have killed thousands. We have ships. We have soldiers. We are asking permission to help defend these innocent people." Councillor Velthar rose from his section. He was old, even by the standards of his species. His insectoid body was scarred from centuries of life, his mandibles clicking as he spoke. "Humanity has been part of this council for 89 years. Barely a moment in galactic time. And in that short time, you have shown nothing but violence and aggression. You destroyed your own planet in wars before you even reached the stars. You celebrate conflict. You glorify soldiers. And now you ask us to let you bring your weapons into council space? The answer is no." The vote came quickly. 847 species voted. Only one voted yes. Earth stood alone, as it had so many times before. Hyeri watched the results display on the massive screens. She felt no surprise, only a deep weariness. She had given her entire adult life to this job. She had believed the council represented something noble, something worth joining. She had been wrong. "Then Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council," she said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Even the translation systems seemed to pause. "Excuse me?" High Arbiter Quorath shimmered in his containment field. His species existed as pure energy, and his voice sounded like wind through crystal. "You cannot simply withdraw. There are treaties, obligations. You cannot leave." "Yes, we can," Hyeri replied. "We joined voluntarily. We leave voluntarily. Earth and all human colonies will evacuate council space within 1 galactic standard year. We will take everything we brought. We will leave no damage and expect no compensation. We are simply done." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Councillor Velthar clicked his mandibles in what his species considered amusement. "This is a negotiation tactic. Humans are emotional and impulsive. You will calm down in a few days and apologize." "No," Hyeri said. She gathered her data tablets and turned to leave. "We will not." Captain Dahyun received the message on the bridge of the Exodus Dawn, humanity's largest diplomatic vessel. He read it 3 times to be certain he understood correctly. Then, he stood and addressed his crew. "All hands. Prepare for immediate departure. Broadcast recall orders to every human settlement, research station, embassy, and trade post in council space. Authorization code Alpha 77. This is not a drill. We are going home." His first officer, a young woman named Jiwan, who had been born on a space station and never seen Earth, stared at him. "Sir? All of them? There are thousands of installations, millions of people. All of them," Dahyun confirmed. "We have 1 year. Start planning evacuation logistics immediately." Across council space, humans received the same message. Scientists working in joint research facilities, doctors teaching alien medical students, engineers maintaining power stations on worlds they had never even visited before taking the job. Merchants running trade routes between species who refused to speak to each other directly. Teachers, farmers, mechanics, diplomats, soldiers serving as advisors to council security forces. They all got the same order. Pack up, leave nothing behind, come home, On the orbital station above Centauri Prime, engineer Jiwon's older brother Minho supervised a research lab where humans and 6 other species studied cross-species diseases. He called his team together and told them the news. "But the project is only half finished," protested one of his alien colleagues, a Corvallian named Thexip. "We are so close to a vaccine that could save billions of lives." "Then you will finish it without us," Minho said gently. "I am sorry. This is not about the work. This is about respect." Thexip clicked her beak in frustration. "What does respect matter when measured against lives saved?" Everything," Minho replied. "Respect matters for everything. Without it, we are just tools you use and discard." In the trading hub of Sector 9, Merchant Captain Sujin began liquidating her cargo holds. She had spent 15 years building relationships with traders from across the council. She knew their families. She had been to their weddings. Some of them had been to hers. "You are really leaving?" asked her longtime business partner, a methane-breathing Gelden named Rix. "Yes," Sujin said. "I am sorry, old friend. But why? Over one vote? There will be other votes." Sujin shook her head. "It is not about one vote. It is about 89 years of votes. 89 years of being told we are too young, too violent, too stupid to have a real voice. We are tired, Rix. We are just tired." Back on Earth, Director Nari watched the news broadcasts with satisfaction. The government had been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment. They had known the council would reject the proposal. They had counted on it. Humanity needed a reason to leave that everyone would understand. The council had given them that reason. "How long until the first ships arrive?" she asked her aide. "Transports from the nearest colonies will dock at Luna Station in 6 days. The outer rim evacuations will take 11 months. Then we have work to do," Nari said. "When our people come home, they need to know Earth is ready to stand alone." In the council chamber, Ambassador Hyeri took one last look at the space where she had spent more than 2 decades. She thought about all the speeches she had given, all the compromises she had made, all the times she had swallowed her pride for the sake of diplomacy. Then she walked out and did not look back. Behind her, the council was already moving on to other business. They barely noticed her departure. In 1 year, they would notice everything. 6 months had passed since humanity announced its withdrawal. The council had stopped laughing. Engineer Jiwon stood in the control room of the Helix station, one of the largest power relay installations in the sector. Her team had built this station 12 years ago, back when humanity still believed cooperation meant something. The station drew energy from a nearby pulsar and distributed it to 47 different worlds across 3 systems. "All systems disconnected," reported her assistant, checking the final readouts. "Local governments have been given full operational manuals. Whether they can actually run it is their problem now." Jiwon nodded. She felt no satisfaction in leaving, but no guilt either. The council species had used this station for over a decade. Not once had they sent engineers to learn how it actually worked. They just expected it to function, like magic, like humans existed to serve them. "Remove the quantum regulators," she ordered. "Those were human-designed. Leave the basic system intact, but take anything we invented." The regulators were what made the station 40% more efficient than standard council technology. Without them, the station would still work, but it would struggle. Rolling brownouts would become common. Industries would suffer. But that was not humanity's problem anymore. Similar scenes played out across council space. Humans had built infrastructure everywhere, usually filling gaps the council species were too proud or too lazy to address. Power stations, water purification systems, atmospheric processors, communication relays. The council had never realized how much of their civilization ran on human innovation. On the medical station above Centauri Prime, Dr. Minho was packing decades of research. His Corvallian colleague Thexip watched him work, her expression troubled. "I have been reviewing the publication records," she said quietly. "In the past 20 years, 73% of breakthroughs in cross-species medicine came from human-led research teams. Minho paused in his packing. You did not know that? The papers listed multi-species teams. I assumed the contributions were equal. Thexip clicked her beak nervously. I was wrong. Humans see patterns we miss. You think about biology differently. You can look at a Gelden respiratory system and a Zentari circulatory system, and somehow understand how they might interact. We only see our own biology deeply. That is not our problem anymore, Minho said, though not unkindly. But people will die, Thexip protested. Without human researchers, progress will slow to nothing. The vaccine for crossing syndrome, the treatment for multi-species infections, the work on atmospheric adaptation, all of that depends on human insight. Minho closed the container he was packing. Then perhaps the council should have treated us like equals instead of assistants. In the trading hub of Sector 9, the effects were already visible. Sujin's departure had been the first, but hundreds of other human traders followed. The hub, once bustling with activity, was half empty. The problem was not just that humans were leaving. The problem was what they had been doing while they were there. Humans traded with everyone. They did not care about ancient grudges or political rivalries. A human merchant would sell Zentari goods to Corvalians, Gelden technology to Methune, Corvalian art to Zentari. They were neutral middlemen in a galaxy full of species that refused to deal directly with each other. Without human traders, old hatreds resurfaced. Zentari merchants would not dock at stations where Corvalians might be present. Gelden ships avoided Methune trade routes. The carefully balanced network of commerce that had existed for decades began to fracture along species lines. Station Master Rix watched his hub deteriorate and wondered how it had happened so quickly. 6 months ago, this station processed 10,000 transactions per day. Now it barely managed 3,000. The economic reports were catastrophic. Military bases across Council space faced similar problems. Colonel Tajin commanded a human advisory unit attached to the Council security force. His job, officially, was to provide tactical consultation. Unofficially, he and officers like him ran the entire operation. Sir, the Council liaison is asking again when we will transfer command protocols, reported his aide. Tajin looked at the confused Council officers who were supposedly about to take over operations. They were experienced in their own military traditions, but those traditions did not talk to each other. A Zentari commander organized forces by hive mind principles. A Corvalian preferred independent scout tactics. A Methune thought in terms of energy distribution patterns. None of them understood combined arms doctrine. Humans had spent decades quietly coordinating these different approaches into something that actually worked. They had learned each species' military language and translated between them. They had created joint tactics that played to everyone's strengths. They had run the communication networks that kept dozens of species fighting as one unit instead of 47 separate armies. Tell them we will provide all documentation as required, Tajin said. But documentation is not understanding. They are about to learn that the hard way. On the fringes of Council space, pirates were already learning it. They had always feared human advisory units. Humans fought differently than Council species. They were unpredictable, aggressive, and disturbingly creative. Now the humans were leaving, and the pirates were getting bolder. In a research facility on the ice world of Helion 7, Professor Unji was erasing her work. Not destroying it, she would take it with her, but removing it from Council databases. Her research on faster-than-light communication had been labeled as a Council achievement. Her name appeared in the credits, but most people assumed the real work came from older, wiser species. Professor, please, begged her research partner, a young Methune scientist named Colvin. This research belongs to everyone. It is bigger than politics. No, Unji said firmly. This research belongs to me. I did the work. I had the insight. The council took credit and gave me a pat on the head like a clever pet. I am done with that. Colvin shimmered with distress. But I do not understand your equations. None of us do. We need you to explain. Then you should have listened when I was explaining for the past 8 years, Unji interrupted. I published papers. I gave lectures. I offered to teach courses. The council said my teaching methods were too simple, too basic, not sophisticated enough. They meant I was too human, too young, too inferior. Now, you want my help? Too late. Across the galaxy, thousands of human scientists were having similar conversations. The council was beginning to understand that human contributions to science were not just additive. Humans thought differently. They connected ideas from different fields. They saw problems from angles other species missed. Council science had been coasting on human creativity for decades without realizing it. Agricultural colonies faced the strangest crisis. Young-Su supervised food distribution networks across 7 sectors. His job seemed simple, moving food from farms to cities. But food was complicated in a multi-species civilization. Zentari could not eat Corvallian crops. Gelden food was toxic to Mithun. Every meal required careful logistics. Humans had solved this problem through sheer persistence. They had mapped out who could eat what. They had created distribution systems that ensured every species got appropriate nutrition. They had even hybridized crops to work for multiple species. And they had done it so efficiently that nobody noticed it was being done at all. Now Young-Su was leaving and taking his networks with him. Food shipments were already getting confused. Zentari colonies were receiving Mithun nutrient paste. Corvallian stations were getting Gelden grain that their biology could not process. People were not starving yet. But they would be soon. Back on Earth, Director Nari reviewed the reports with grim satisfaction. The council was unraveling faster than projected. She had expected it to take years. Instead, it was taking months. Should we offer assistance? Asked her aide. Humanitarian concerns? No, Nari said coldly. We offered assistance for 89 years. We fixed their problems, maintained their systems, and filled their gaps. They called us violent children and voted to keep us powerless. Now they can solve their own problems. The R. My Klee. In the council chamber, Councillor Thexai presented her findings to the assembly. She had spent months investigating what humans actually did in council space. The results horrified her. Humans filled 10,000 critical roles, she announced. Not glamorous positions. Not leadership roles. Maintenance. Coordination. Translation. Teaching. The unglamorous work that keeps civilization functioning. They volunteered for jobs nobody else wanted because those jobs needed doing. And we never noticed because we were too busy congratulating ourselves on our ancient wisdom. Councillor Velthar dismissed her concerns. Other species will step forward. We survived for millions of years before humans arrived. We will survive after they leave. Will we? Thexai challenged. 3 industrial worlds have already experienced infrastructure failures. Interspecies trade has dropped 40%. Research output is down 62%. And the humans are not even fully gone yet. What happens when they finish leaving? Number C. Number C. Number C. The council had no answer, but they would learn soon enough. 9 months after humanity's announcement, council space was collapsing. It happened slowly at first, then all at once, like a building with a cracked foundation, finally giving way. Colonel Tajin stood on the bridge of his transport ship, watching the council security base shrink behind him. He was the last human officer to leave. The base that had once coordinated defense for 12 sectors now sat in chaos. On his displays, he could see council officers arguing in 7 different languages, none of them understanding the others. Sir, we are receiving distress calls from the base, reported his communications officer. They are asking us to return. Priority? Emergency. Denied, Tajin said flatly. They have all our manuals. They have all our protocols. They have everything except the willingness to actually work together. The problem was simple. Council military doctrine was not actually unified. Each species had its own proud traditions, its own way of fighting, its own command structure. For decades, human advisors had quietly bridged these differences. They had learned to speak military Zentari, which was different from diplomatic Zentari. They had mastered Corvallian tactical philosophy. They had studied Methune energy warfare principles. More importantly, humans had created a common language that all species could use. Simple words, clear concepts, universal tactical symbols. It was not glamorous work. Military translators never got medals. But without them, the Council's Grand Fleet was just dozens of separate navies that happened to be in the same space. The pirates understood this before the Council did. Captain Daehyun had been tracking pirate communications for months. They were organizing, testing defenses, finding weaknesses. A massive raid was coming, and the Council had no idea how to stop it. Not our problem anymore, Daehyun muttered, though he felt uneasy saying it. He was a soldier. Soldiers protected people. But the Council had made it clear that humanity's protection was not wanted. On research stations across Council space, the scientific community was in panic. Professor Unji's departure had revealed something terrifying. Humans were not just good at science, they were the engine of scientific progress. Arbiter Kelnath, a junior council member, had been investigating this mystery. She compiled publication records, patent filings, and research citations going back 50 years. The results shocked her. Council species were experts in deep, narrow fields. Zentari understood biological hive systems better than anyone. Corvallians were masters of atmospheric chemistry. Methune could calculate energy dynamics that made human physicists weep. But none of them could connect these disciplines together. Humans could. A human researcher would read Zentari biology papers, Corvallian chemistry research, and Methune energy studies, then combine all three into something entirely new. They saw patterns across disciplines that specialized experts missed. They asked stupid questions that turned out to be brilliant insights. They failed constantly but learned from each failure. Innovation requires cross-pollination, Unji had written in one of her last reports. You cannot innovate in isolation. But Council species are isolated by their own expertise. Humans were your translators between fields of knowledge. Without us, you will become very good at knowing more and more about less and less. The report sat in Council databases, unread until Kelnath found it. By then, it was too late. Agricultural disasters were spreading. Young-Soo had taken his logistics networks home to Earth, but he left something else behind. A realization: food distribution in a multi-species civilization was insanely complex. It was not enough to grow food. You had to know which species could eat what. You had to prevent cross-contamination. You had to manage supply chains across hostile political boundaries. Humans had been doing this for free. They had treated it as a solved problem, something that just worked in the background. Now it was unsolved, and people were suffering. On the agricultural world of Harvest Station 7, Corvallian farmers watched their crops rot in warehouses. The Zentari colonies that usually bought this food had stopped accepting shipments, not because of politics, but because nobody knew how to modify the crops for Zentari biology anymore. The human agricultural specialists who did that work were gone. Can we not just read their manuals? Asked the station administrator desperately. We tried, replied the lead farmer. The manuals assume you understand hybrid genetics, cross-species nutrition, and biomodification protocols. We do not understand these things. We are farmers, not scientists. Then hire scientists. We did. They do not understand farming. This conversation repeated across Council space. Humans had been bridges between specialists. They had understood just enough about everything to make different experts work together. Without them, experts talked past each other in languages of pure specialization. The economic collapse was equally devastating. Trader Sujin had been one of thousands of human merchants who did something remarkable. They treated everyone fairly, not because humans were particularly noble, but because humans did not care about ancient grudges they had never experienced. A human trader did not know that Zentari and Corvallian had been enemies 2 million years ago. They did not care that Methune considered Geldon to be beneath them. They just saw customers and suppliers. They built networks based on efficiency and mutual benefit, not on species politics. Without humans, trade networks fractured along ancient lines. Zentari traded with Zentari, Corvallians with Corvallians. Each species retreated to its own kind. Prices rose. Shortages appeared. The economic integration that had brought prosperity for decades evaporated in months. Councillor Thexip presented her reports to increasingly desperate council sessions. "We are experiencing systemic failure," she announced. "Not because humans sabotaged anything. They left everything functional. We are failing because we never learned to do the work they did. We never valued it enough to learn." "Nonsense," snapped Councillor Velthar. "We are ancient civilizations. Humans are children who have barely learned to leave their world. We will adapt. We will. To what?" Thexip demanded. "Humans adapted to us. They learned our languages, our customs, our needs. They changed themselves to fit into our civilization. Now we must adapt to function without them, and we do not know how." High Arbiter Quarath shimmered in his containment field. "Then we bring them back. Send a delegation to Earth. Offer them better terms. Make them return." "And if they refuse?" Thexip asked. The council had no answer. The idea that humans might not want to return had not occurred to them. Surely humanity needed the council more than the council needed humanity. That was the natural order. Maybe Enines. But amazing, the young needed the old. The students needed the teachers. Except the teachers had not been teaching. They had been taking. On Earth, Director Nari watched the council's economic data with satisfaction. "Their economy has contracted 34%, she reported to the planetary government. "Infrastructure failures are accelerating. They will send a delegation within weeks." "And when they do?" asked the Prime Minister. "We say no," Nari replied simply. "We are done being useful to people who do not respect us." The Prime Minister looked troubled. "There will be suffering. Innocent people will die because systems are failing. Innocent people were dying in pirate raids, while the council debated whether humans were trustworthy enough to help." Nari countered. "We offered to serve. They refused. We offered partnership. They declined. We offered our labor, our innovation, our creativity. They accepted it all and gave us nothing but contempt in return. Their suffering now is not our fault." "Perhaps not our fault," the Prime Minister said quietly. "But are we responsible for preventing it? If we can?" It was the question that haunted every human who had left council space. They had not wanted to leave. They had wanted respect. But respect could not be demanded. Only given freely, or not at all. Back in council space, the long-predicted pirate raid finally came. 50 pirate fleets, coordinated for the first time in history, struck simultaneously at 6 different sectors. They had been planning this for months, waiting for the humans to finish leaving. The council's military response was chaos. Zentari commanders issued orders in hive pattern formations that Corvallians could not parse. Corvallians sent scouts in directions that violated Methune defensive doctrine. Methune ships repositioned to optimize energy distribution, but left gaps in the physical defensive line. Nobody could coordinate. Nobody could communicate effectively. The pirates smashed through the confused defenses and struck at civilian targets. Millions of council citizens watched their protectors fail and wondered what had gone wrong. The answer was simple, but hard to accept. The protectors had never been as competent as they believed. They had been relying on human competence and calling it their own. In the council chamber, emergency powers were invoked. A delegation would be sent to Earth immediately. They would offer humans anything they wanted: better representation, more voting power, formal apologies, whatever it took to bring them back. Humans are emotional, Velthar insisted. They make decisions in anger and regret them later. They will return once they calm down. Counselor Thexip said nothing, but she doubted it very much. She had been reading human literature, trying to understand the species the council had lost. She had learned something important. Humans forgave almost anything except being taken for granted. The council had taken humanity for granted for 89 years. Some mistakes could not be fixed. With apologies, 11 months after humanity announced its departure, the council delegation arrived at Earth. They came in the largest diplomatic vessel the council possessed, a massive ship designed to impress lesser species with the majesty of ancient civilizations. They expected to find a struggling humanity, desperate and isolated, ready to negotiate a return to the galactic community. What they found instead made them question everything they thought they knew. Earth had changed. The planet below glowed with activity. Orbital stations that had been empty 11 months ago now bustled with construction. Ships moved in organized patterns, bearing designs the council had never seen, and surrounding Earth was a defensive fleet that made the delegation's sensors scream warnings. "That is not possible," whispered Counselor Varmoth, leader of the delegation. "We restricted human military development. Those ships should not exist." His tactical officer, a Zentari named Kixthar, studied the readings. The restrictions only applied while humanity was part of the council. They are no longer bound by our agreements. The delegation requested permission to land. It took 3 hours for Earth to respond. When the message came, it was simple and businesslike. Land at Geneva Station. 1 delegation member and 2 aides only. No weapons. No recording devices beyond personal logs. The disrespect, Varmoth hissed. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not follow the rules of others. We are in their space now," Kixthar reminded him. They landed. Geneva Station was huge, much larger than it had been when humans left council space. The delegation was escorted through corridors filled with humans and something else, other aliens. Species the council had deemed too primitive or too troublesome to invite. Corvalians from independent colonies. Gelden from isolationist worlds. Even a few Zentari from frontier settlements who had been denied council membership. They were all here, working together, trading, talking, laughing. Director Nari met them in a conference room with large windows overlooking Earth. She was not alone. Admiral Kyung-ho stood behind her in full military dress. Researcher Hajun sat at the table with data tablets. And Ambassador Hyri, retired now but still sharp, sat at Nari's right hand. "Welcome to Earth," Nari said. Her tone was polite but not warm. "You requested this meeting. Speak." Varmoth had prepared a speech. He had practiced it for days. It spoke of shared history, mutual cooperation, and the great responsibilities that came with galactic community. It offered humanity a return to the council with improved terms, more voting rights, better representation, a formal apology for past misunderstandings. He delivered it perfectly. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then Director Nari smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "No," she said simply. Varmoth blinked. "You refuse? But we are offering you unprecedented." "We heard the offer," Nari interrupted. "Probationary return. Improved status. More rights. Do you understand what you are actually offering? You are offering us the privilege of being slightly less disrespected than before." "The answer is no. You need the council," Varmoth insisted. "You are isolated, cut off from galactic trade and knowledge. How long do you think Earth can survive alone?" Admiral Kyung-ho laughed. It was a cold sound. "Perhaps you should explain to them, Hajun." Researcher Hajun activated his tablets. Images filled the air between them. Star charts, trade routes, technology specifications. "We are not alone," he said. "In the 11 months since we left Council space, 47 other species have contacted Earth. Not Council members. Independent species your Council never bothered with. Species you called primitive because they did not have your ancient technologies. Species you ignored because they were young, or small, or different." More images appeared. Ships, stations, colonies. "We are building something new. A federation based on actual equality. No senior species, no junior species. Just partners working together because we choose to, not because tradition demands it." "Impossible," Varmoth said. "Those species are not advanced enough to—" "Howarses." 74. 5. "To what?" Nari asked sharply. "To contribute? To innovate? To have value? That is exactly the thinking that made us leave. You judged species by their age, not their potential. You measured worth in millennia instead of ideas. And you were wrong." Ambassador Hyeri spoke for the first time. "I spent 23 years in your council. I listened to speeches about wisdom and experience. But I never heard ideas. I never saw innovation. The council is not wise. The council is old. And old is not the same as wise. Old can also mean rigid, stagnant, afraid of change." "We are not afraid," Varmoth protested. "Then why did you restrict human military development?" Admiral Kyung-ho asked. "Why did you limit human research? Why did you assign us to maintenance roles instead of leadership positions? You were not protecting the galaxy from humanity. You were protecting your own status from competition. We were protecting everyone from your violent nature," Varmoth said. "No," Hajun replied. "You were afraid that if humans were given equal opportunities, we would prove that age and wisdom are not the same thing. And we have. Look at your economy, your infrastructure, your military. Everything is failing because you never learned to do the work. You just used humans to do it, while claiming the credit." Varmoth felt his confidence crumbling. "We came to negotiate your return. To make things right. What do you want? Name your terms." "We do not want anything from you," Nari said. "That is what you do not understand. We do not need the council. We tried to work with you because we believed in cooperation, but cooperation requires respect. You gave us duties without voice, labor without recognition, service without dignity. We are done with that." "But the suffering," Varmoth said desperately. "Council space is in crisis. Systems are failing. People are dying. You have the knowledge to fix these problems. You have the obligation to help." "Obligation?" Hyeri's voice was ice. "We had no obligation to maintain your infrastructure for 89 years. But we did. We had no obligation to bridge your species' communication gaps. But we did. We had no obligation to fill every thankless role. Your proud ancient civilizations were too important to do. But we did. We helped because it needed doing. And you treated our help as tribute. As though we owed you service, because you were old, and we were young. Now you demand we have an obligation to fix the problems you created by taking us for granted?" "No." Varmoth looked at his aides. They had no suggestions. This was not going according to plan. "What would you have us do?" he asked finally. "Fix your own problems," Admiral Kyung-ho said. "Learn to do the work you never valued. Figure out how to make your own species cooperate. Build your own infrastructure. Or do not. Either way, it is not our concern. You would let civilizations fall?" Varmoth was aghast. "You would watch people suffer when you could prevent it?" "We offered to prevent suffering 11 months ago," Nari reminded him. "We asked permission to protect the Outer Rim from pirates. Your council voted no. You said we were too dangerous, too violent, too untrustworthy. Those people suffered while you debated our unworthiness. Do not speak to us about preventing suffering. You only care about suffering when it affects you. Researcher Hajun brought up more data. We have been monitoring Council space. We know about the pirate raids. We know about the infrastructure failures. We know about the economic collapse. And we know that you have the resources to fix all of it if your species would actually work together instead of competing over ancient pride. We do not know how, Varmoth admitted quietly. Humans made it look easy. We never learned. That is not our fault. Hyeri said. We tried to teach. We offered training programs. We suggested collaborative education. We wrote manuals and documentation. Your species ignored it all because you believed you already knew everything worth knowing. Silence fell over the meeting. Varmoth looked out at Earth, at the bustling orbital stations, at the ships moving in precise coordination. This was not the defeated humanity he expected. This was a civilization that had thrived without the Council, perhaps even because they left the Council. What if we reformed? He asked. What if the Council changed? Made species truly equal, instead of ranked by age? Then you would have something worth building, Nari said. But that is your work to do, not ours. We are building our own future now. You are welcome to build yours. But we will not come back to carry you. The meeting ended. The delegation returned to their ship in silence. As they left Earth's orbit, Varmoth looked back at the planet, one last time. We made a mistake, he said quietly. Yes, agreed Kixthar. We mistook service for weakness. We thought that because humans helped us, it meant they needed us. We were wrong. The delegation's ship turned away from Earth and began the long journey back to Council space. Behind them, humanity continued building something new, something better, something that valued contribution over age, cooperation over hierarchy, and dignity over tradition. The Council would have to learn those lessons on its own, if it could. 5 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. Captain Daehyun, now Admiral Daehyun, stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship Unity. Through the viewport, he could see dozens of ships from 20 different species, all moving in perfect coordination. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. This was the new Federation, and it worked in ways the Council never had. Admiral, we are receiving a distress signal from Council space, reported his communications officer. Multiple sources. It appears to be a major emergency. Daehyun felt his stomach tighten. He had been waiting for this call. Put it through. The message was fragmentary. Panicked. Pirate fleets had launched a massive, coordinated attack on Council core worlds. The Council's fragmented military could not respond. Millions were in danger. They were asking anyone, everyone, for help. They were asking the Federation for help. Prepare a response, Daehyun ordered. And get me Chancellor Sohee. The Council had fractured badly in 5 years. 47 species had left to join humanity's new Federation. Another 63 had declared independence. Tired of Council politics. What remained was a shell of the old government, still claiming authority but unable to enforce it. Councillor Velthar and High Arbiter Quorath still led what was left. They had refused to admit that their rigid hierarchy was the problem. They blamed humanity for destabilizing the galaxy. They blamed the departing species for disloyalty. They blamed everyone except themselves. Councillor Thexype had led a reform movement. But it was too little, too late. She had tried to make the Council more democratic, more equal, more like the Federation. The old guard had blocked her at every turn. Eventually, she had given up and joined the Federation herself. Now the Council was reaping what it had sowed. Pirates, emboldened by years of weak resistance, had unified into a massive fleet. They saw the divided Council as easy prey. They were right. Chancellor Sohee addressed the Federation Assembly. She was human, but she had been elected by all member species. Not because she was human, but because she was competent. That was how the Federation worked. Merit mattered more than species. "We have received a distress call from Council Space," she announced. "Pirates are attacking civilian populations. The Council's military cannot respond effectively. They are asking for our help." Well, the assembly erupted in debate. Species from all over the galaxy argued different positions. Some wanted to help immediately. Others wanted the Council to face the consequences of its arrogance. Still others suggested using this as leverage to force Council reforms. Former Councilor Thexip stood. "I left the Council because it refused to change. But I did not leave its people. There are billions of innocent civilians who are suffering because their leaders were too proud to adapt. We should help them." "Why?" demanded a Gelden representative. "The Council called us primitive. They refused us membership. They treated us as inferior. Why should we risk our lives for them? Because we are better than they were," Thexip said quietly. "The Council failed because it helped only those it deemed worthy. We will succeed because we help those who need it, regardless of worth." The vote was close, but it passed. The Federation would send aid. Not because the Council deserved it, but because innocent people needed it. Admiral Daehyun assembled the largest fleet the galaxy had seen in centuries. Ships from Earth, from Corvallian colonies, from Gelden worlds, from Zentari frontier settlements, species that the Council had ignored or rejected, now working together seamlessly. The Federation fleet arrived in Council space like a storm. The pirates had been expecting confused Council defenders. They got coordinated professional military forces instead. The battle was short and brutal. Federation ships moved as one unit, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. Human crews coordinated with alien crews, using the simple, clear communication protocols that had been developed over 5 years of actual cooperation. The pirates broke and ran. Those who did not escape were captured. In 6 hours, the threat that had terrorized Council space for months was eliminated. Then the Federation fleet did something the pirates had not expected. They did not occupy. They did not demand tribute. They began rescue operations, pulling Council citizens from damaged stations, providing medical aid, distributing emergency supplies. "Why are they helping us?" asked a Zentari refugee in shock. "We treated them terribly. We dismissed them. We mocked them." A human medic smiled while treating the refugee's injuries. "Because you needed help. That is enough." In what remained of the Council chamber, Councillor Velthar watched the reports with mounting humiliation. The Federation had saved them. The young upstart humans and their collection of species the Council had deemed unworthy had done what the ancient Council could not. "We must thank them," said High Arbiter Quorath, "and request they station forces here for ongoing protection." "No," Thexip said. She had returned to the Council chamber one last time, not as a member, but as Federation ambassador. "The Federation will not protect you. We will train you to protect yourselves if you wish. But we will not do your work for you. Not anymore." "You would leave us defenseless?" Velthar demanded. "You are not defenseless," Thexip replied. "You have ships. You have soldiers. You have resources. What you lack is the ability to work together. That is something you must learn yourselves." "Teach us then," Quorath said. "Send advisors. Help us rebuild our military." "We will," Thexip agreed. "But only if the Council agrees to fundamental reforms. No more species ranking by age. No more senior and junior members. Actual equality, or nothing." The old Council leadership looked at each other. This was everything they had resisted for centuries. The idea that a young species could be equal to an ancient one. That wisdom came from action, not age. That contribution mattered more than tradition. "And if we refuse?" Velthar asked. "Then you will continue to fail," Thexip said simply. "And eventually, Every species in Council space will leave to join the Federation or go independent. You will be left with nothing but your pride. The vote took 3 days. In the end, the old council dissolved. A new council formed in its place, based on Federation principles: equal representation, democratic governance, merit-based leadership. Councillor Velthar and High Arbiter Quarath refused to participate. They retreated to their homeworlds, still insisting they had been right, still blaming everyone but themselves. History would not remember them kindly. On Earth, Ambassador Hyeri sat in her garden watching the news. The Reformed Council was asking to join the Federation as a single-member bloc. The Federation Assembly was debating whether to accept them. Admiral Daehyun came to visit her. He was due to retire soon, his work largely done. "Did you think it would turn out this way?" he asked. Hyeri smiled. "I hoped. I did not know. When we left, I worried we were abandoning people who needed help. But we taught them something more valuable than our labor. We taught them that respect matters, that dignity cannot be taken for granted, that contribution without recognition is exploitation, not cooperation. Some of them still do not understand," Daehyun observed. "Some never will," Hyeri agreed. "But enough did. Enough changed. That is all we can ask." The Federation Assembly voted to accept the Reformed Council as provisional members. They would have full rights after demonstrating 10 years of stable, egalitarian governance. It was not charity. It was partnership with conditions. Chancellor Sohee addressed the galaxy from Earth. 5 years ago, humanity left the Galactic Council. We did not leave in anger. We left in disappointment. We had hoped to find fellowship among the stars. Instead, we found hierarchy. We had hoped to give our gifts freely. Instead, they were taken without gratitude. So we left. And she paused, looking at the cameras that broadcast her words to hundreds of worlds. But we did not give up on the dream. We just built it differently. The new Federation is what we hoped the Council would be. A place where species are valued for what they contribute, not how old they are. Where cooperation is real, not just words. Where dignity and respect are given to everyone, not just the ancient and powerful. Some people ask if we regret leaving the Council. The answer is no. We regret that we had to leave. But we do not regret building something better. On a Zentari colony world, a young student watched the broadcast and asked her teacher, "Why did the Council treat humans badly? Were humans weak?" The teacher, who had lived through the transition, shook her head. No. Humans were strong. The Council treated them badly because the Council was weak. They were afraid that if they admitted humans were their equals, it would mean being ancient was not special. They confused age with value. By the time they learned the difference, humanity was gone. But humanity came back to help us, the student said. Even though we were mean to them. Talenti, 43, yes. The teacher agreed. That is what makes them strong. They did not need us to respect them before they would help us. They helped us anyway. And in doing so, they taught us what respect really means. In space, Federation ships continued their work, exploring, trading, protecting, building. Ships crewed by humans and Corvalians and Gelden and Zentari and dozens of other species, all working together because they chose to, not because they had to. Admiral Daehyun looked at his diverse crew and felt satisfaction. This was what he had dreamed of when Earth first joined the Council all those years ago. Not humans dominating others. Not others dominating humans. Just people working together as equals. The Council had watched humanity leave. They had laughed at first, then panicked, then learned. Not all of them, but enough. And in the end, humanity had gotten what they wanted. Not power, not dominance, just respect. And a galaxy where species could meet as equals. It had taken 5 years. It had required humanity, to walk away from everything they had built. But sometimes, walking away was the only way to teach people your true value. The galaxy was better for it. And humanity, no longer burdened by those who took them for granted, was finally free to reach their full potential. The stars were bright, the future was open, and humanity, alongside their true partners, was ready for whatever came next.